"Can I slip under your blanket?" the CEO whispered, and the single dad froze in shock. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the radiator struggling to warm the tiny cabin. Snow pressed against the windows like thick white hands, and the storm outside showed no sign of slowing. The lights had flickered twice already, and Ethan knew they might lose power at any moment. He never imagined tonight would end like this. Not with Adrian Hale, the impossibly polished, intimidatingly powerful CEO, standing barefoot on the wooden floor, dressed only in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking nothing like the man who graced Forbes covers. Not asking that question, not with that softened voice, not with that vulnerable look. Ethan's throat tightened. "You want to what?" he managed. Adrian swallowed, the Adam's apple in his throat bobbing nervously, a rare sight for a man who negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking. But right now, he looked almost shy. "The fire isn't keeping the cabin warm enough," Adrian said slowly. "And you're shivering under there." He exhaled. "I don't want you freezing through the night." Ethan stared at him. "There's another blanket in the closet." "No there isn't," Adrian murmured. "I checked." Ethan blinked. "Why would you check?" Adrian shifted on his feet. "Because you and Liam fell asleep while I was trying to restart the generator. And when I came back, you were cold." His eyes softened. "Too cold." Ethan's heart stuttered painfully. Liam, his 8-year-old son, was curled up at the far end of the bed, bundled tightly under a thick quilt. The boy had exhausted himself building snowmen outside before the storm worsened. When the rental SUV got stuck and Adrian insisted they all stay in the CEO's secluded winter lodge until help arrived, Ethan hadn't expected any of this. Especially not warmth, especially not protection, especially not attention, from a man like him. Ethan cleared his throat. "Adrian, you're my boss." Adrian's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Off the clock." "That's not how it works," Ethan whispered. "Maybe it should be," Adrian replied. Ethan's breath hitched. The wind howled against the cabin, shaking the walls. The fire sputtered, struggling to hold on. For a moment, it felt like the whole world had shrunk to this tiny room. Just the two of them. Just them and the unspoken tension that had crackled between them for months at the office but had always been neatly tucked away, the kind of tension men like Adrian never acted on. Or so Ethan had thought. Adrian took a step closer to the bed. "I'm not trying anything, I promise. His voice grew quieter. "I can't sleep knowing you're freezing." Ethan hesitated. He remembered the first day he joined Hale Industries. How everyone warned him to stay out of Adrian's way. How the CEO never smiled. How he was a storm wrapped in a 3-piece suit. But in the weeks that followed, Ethan caught the subtle cracks in the facade. The long stares, the lingering pauses, the strange concern whenever Ethan looked tired or overwhelmed. Adrian would show up at the daycare unannounced to help when Ethan couldn't leave a meeting. He made sure Liam always had snacks from the executive floor, premium ones Ethan never could afford. Adrian Hale was not the man the world believed him to be. But he was still his boss. And this, sharing a blanket, was dangerous territory. Ethan tugged the quilt tighter around himself. "If anyone found out." "No one will," Adrian said quickly. "We're snowed in. No signal, no cameras, no staff. Just us, just us." The words hung in the air, heavy and intimate. Ethan tried to calm the racing of his heart. "Why are you being like this?" Adrian paused. Something flickered in his eyes, something deep, something he had buried for too long. "Because I care," he whispered. Ethan felt the ground tilt beneath him. Adrian closed the last bit of distance until he stood beside the bed. His voice dropped to something warm enough to melt the frost on the windows. "Ethan, if you tell me to sleep on the floor, I will." His chest rose and fell with controlled breaths. "But I'm asking, just asking, let me stay close, just for tonight." Ethan's pulse thundered. He had spent years taking care of everyone else, his son, his bills, his responsibilities. No one took care of him. No one ever worried if he was warm enough, tired enough, scared enough. But Adrian was looking at him like that now. Like Ethan mattered. Like Ethan wasn't invisible. He exhaled shakily. "Fine, but stay on your side." A slow smile touched Adrian's lips, not the confident, smug one he used at corporate events. This one was softer, almost relieved. "I can do that." He lifted the blanket gently, careful not to wake Liam, and slid in beside Ethan. The bed dipped under his weight. Heat radiated from him immediately, and Ethan felt his toes stop aching from cold. For a long moment, neither spoke. Snow tapped the window like impatient fingers. Liam snored lightly from across the bed. The fire cracked weakly, but the room already felt warmer. Too warm. Ethan's voice was barely audible. Are you comfortable? Adrian turned his head slowly, eyes finding his in the dim glow. More than you know. Ethan swallowed, trying to keep his breathing steady. You said you weren't trying anything. I'm not, Adrian murmured. But that doesn't mean I can't feel something. Ethan's breath stopped. Adrian didn't move closer, he kept his word. But his presence filled the air, thickening it with unspoken thoughts. His voice was a low hum that curled around Ethan's spine. You know, when you interviewed for the job, Adrian said quietly, I didn't hire you because you were the best candidate. Ethan blinked. What? I hired you because you walked into my office with a nervous smile, carrying a toy dinosaur in your backpack for your son. His voice softened, and I hadn't seen honesty like that in years. Ethan felt his heart throb painfully. Adrian continued, his words slow and steady. I told myself it was admiration. Or respect. He exhaled. But it wasn't. Ethan's mouth went dry. Then what was it? Adrian hesitated, the kind of hesitation that meant a truth was about to break free. Then, in a whisper that brushed the air like a confession he could no longer contain, he said. It was the beginning of everything. Ethan's chest tightened. Everything inside him trembled. Fear, warmth, longing, confusion. He had no idea what would happen after the storm passed. Tomorrow, the world would go back to suits and schedules and boundaries. But tonight, the billionaire CEO was lying inches away, sharing his blanket, sharing his warmth, sharing a truth Ethan never imagined hearing. And suddenly, the storm outside didn't seem so frightening anymore.